Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something that's actually pretty special to take a look at. It's something that is a little different, something we don't usually get to take a look at. Now you might be looking at the logo and the box and everything and think, wow, Jurassic Park, yeah, that's real different, Andy. Well, in a way it is, because it's actually from a company that we really don't get to look at anymore because they are defunct. They do not exist anymore. I'm not entirely sure what all the issues were that led to their demise, but I know that there were some financial issues, and I think they potentially claimed bankruptcy. But this is from Chronicle Collectibles, and at the time when Chronicle Collectibles had hit the scene, they were pretty popular. I was actually a pretty big fan of them. They started to kind of lose some steam when they started to really deliver some poorly painted products like the T-Rex that they had released and quite a few others. They did have some stellar releases though, like the Hatching Raptor and the Compsognathus, but then there were others that just weren't really that great, like the T-Rex, the Velociraptor Blue, stuff like that. With this company being defunct, it's not often that you have the opportunity to own any of their models anymore, and one in particular was a model, which you can clearly see the box of here, was one that I wanted pretty badly at the time of its release, but unfortunately it was a little bit pricey. It was like $500 or $450, something like that, at the time of its release, so I was unable to acquire it then. However, I was recently kind of scoping out Big Bad Toy Store, as I often do, to sort of try to discover some undiscovered dinosaur gems on there, because there are sometimes things on there I just don't even know are for sale. And I came across this, and as you can see, we have the Chronicle Collectibles Sick Triceratops here, because yes, this is actually still for sale on the Big Bad Toy Store site. I cannot recommend to you guys enough, if you are interested in this model, to grab it immediately, because it's not going to last long on there. And in fact, it's actually for sale for 50% off of the original price. So it's like $250 or something like that now, which is just a crazy good deal for a discontinued Chronicle Collectibles item. But once we take the camera off the stand, you can see as far as the box art goes, it looks really cool because we've got that really nice Jurassic Park logo up here at the top. And then as you kind of run down here, you can see that the sick Triceratops is kind of laying in the grass. That is such a really cool image. Definitely some really nice box art. You also have that kind of logo there, like that paddock type sign for the Triceratops, and then of course the species name. And as you can see here on the bottom of the box, we have a nice little Alan Grant quote, as well as the Chronicle Collectibles logo. And as you move up, you can see that we actually do have Alan Grant there laying on the Triceratops in Jurassic Park. And then if you actually come all the way up to the top, even though it's upside down currently, you can see a nice Jurassic Park logo up there. So the box is really well done. Chronicle Collectibles always did have really nice artwork on their boxes and everything, so I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about what the actual paint application of this Triceratops is going to look like. But regardless, even if it turns out pretty poor, I'm going to be psyched to have it because it's a Chronicle Collectibles model that I didn't have previously. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So here is our sick Triceratops, and I will say one thing straight away, it's actually really heavy. Like, it definitely has some pretty significant weight to the model itself. The Triceratops is not removable from the base. It stays on the base. There's no, ability to pull it off. So that's something to take note to in case it's something that you were thinking of maybe removing it. But as a whole, I think it does look really cool. It definitely has a very nice kind of classic Jurassic Park look to it, and even though the paint application isn't phenomenal, it's actually better than I was expecting it to be. I sometimes worry when acquiring a Chronicle Collectibles model how good the paint apps will look, and for the most part, even though, again, it's not perfect, it looks alright for what it is. A little better, honestly, than I was expecting for a Chronicle Collectibles model, but again, it looks pretty cool here at first glance, but the only way to truly tell how cool is with a closer look, so let's go ahead and jump to that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Triceratops, straight away I will say they 100% captured the overall appearance of the Jurassic Park Triceratops. Like the, appearance of the head shape of the dinosaur and everything has that picture-perfect Jurassic Park look to it, with the kind of elongated head and snout and everything for the Triceratops. Pretty much exactly how it looks in the film. So sculpt-wise, I feel like it looks great. And honestly, the detailing throughout the entire Triceratops is exceptionally well done. It perfectly captures the Triceratops from Jurassic Park as far as the sculpt goes. The paint application is okay, but again, it's not great. You can see we do have some nice variants varying tones of color. We have variations of browns and all sorts of darker tones, almost some blacks and stuff that I could see throughout the head of the Triceratops. One thing, though, that is present on the Triceratops in Jurassic Park that you don't see on this version is like some light tones of color, kind of like, I think, like light grays and stuff that you see in the face of the Triceratops, and that was not replicated on this Chronicle Collectibles version, but it does still look pretty cool, and it is a very small, minor detail that most times when you get a sick Triceratops model that usually ends up being kind of missed out on. The eye is painted pretty nicely, I will give them that. Definitely looks very nice, very realistic. The beak as well looks really nice. The paintwork of that area is pretty good. You can see the nostrils are highlighted with a darker tone of color. We've got some smooth transitions as we move out there toward the horns of our Triceratops. The detailing of the horns is also really quite nicely done. You can see lots of really nice, very fine detail to the horns, and you have all kinds of skin wrinkles and skin movement and everything shown down here in the lower part of the Triceratops. You can also see that the spikes and everything leading around the frill are all nicely painted, all very carefully painted, and there's some nice variation of color there. Even up in the frill, you can see like some lighter and darker shades of color, really highlighting the frill quite nicely, and again replicating the overall appearance of the Jurassic Park Triceratops quite beautifully. The dinosaur as a whole has a brownish look, which is kind of the way it appears in Jurassic Park. It definitely has that brownish sort of a look, so when creating the sick Triceratops, that's usually what you want to go for, is that kind of brownish tone, though we do know that the Triceratops from Jurassic Park is actually more of a grayish color, but it was just kind of, you could see the dirt. When you actually look at the film, you can just see that it's kind of covered in like some dirt that's just like all over it, so that's kind of why it gives it that brownish coloration. But as you move down the course of the leg, you can see all sorts of really nice looking scale detail, really crisp scale detail. You can see the muscle definition as well as the elbow right there. The legs are crossed again exactly as you see them in Jurassic Park. As you move here along the course of the body, you continue to see again incredible looking scale detail. Look at how nice that scale detail looks. We also have those kind of like osteoderms, those scutes moving through the body again, which is something that's very much so a trademark of the Jurassic Park Triceratops. You can make out the shoulder blade right there, and again really smooth transition as we lead down toward the underside. You can also see some slight tones of variation of color down there in the underside as well. So honestly, I think the actual coloration and paintwork of this is, again, really nice for Chronicle Collectibles. Like, it's definitely quite beautifully done overall. You can see more really nice muscle definition. They've also highlighted the muscle definition here with some shading with that darker coloration. A few more sort of scoots and stuff moving down the thigh, and you've got the kneecap right there. Again, the legs are crossed just like you see in Jurassic Park. There aren't any painted nails or anything on the model, though it looks like the coloration of the nails is basically just the coloration they were applying to the body. But again, some more nice skin wrinkles and skin detail as you lead back here into the tail, and the tail, of course, is laying down on the ground. As far as the model goes, the fine detail is incredible. Definitely one of the most impressive sick Triceratops models I've ever seen. The paintwork is also pretty nice, but not quite as nice as some others that I've seen, but still really, really well done for Chronicle Collectibles. As you move down here to the base, you can see that we have all sorts of kind of vegetation and stuff that's been crushed down, mostly due to our Triceratops laying on it, and you can see it's all given nice variations of greens. I can see like 2 different shades of green, so they've highlighted it pretty nicely. There are just some general kind of like earthy, dirty sort of areas here as far as the outer edge of the base goes, where the vegetation kind of stops. You can see some stones and stuff like that, and everything looks pretty good. And on top of that, the entire base is kind of sculpted to look like Isla Nublar, which is also incredibly cool on the part of Chronicle Collectibles to give it that sort of a look. And then, of course, down here we have that classic Jurassic Park logo, which pretty much is the icing on the cake for the overall appearance, and probably one of the nicest aspects of the model as a whole is having that nice Jurassic Park logo right there in front of the Triceratops, just looking awesome. And then if we turn it over and take a look at the underside, you can see we have Jurassic Park, sick Triceratops. It is a limited edition of 200. I have number 98, so definitely a very low number of this limited edition. So again, if you are interested in grabbing one of these, even more reason why you should get on grabbing it right away. But absolutely is much nicer than I was expecting it to be. I'm honestly quite impressed. We've got our Triceratops kind of laying there along the backdrop, so we can kind of get a good shot to measure it, and this is pretty much the only way that it would sit there, is like this, a kind of a weird angle. As far as a size goes, for a length on the actual Triceratops, if we go from the snout to the tail, you're looking at about I'd say about just shy of 12 and 3/4 inches, or around 32 and a half centimeters. As far, it's like impossible to get a good length on the model itself. If we go from like the outer edge of the base to here, you're looking at about, I would say, right around 13 and 3/4 inches, or around 35 centimeters. That's a pretty rough measurement. As far as like a height, if we were to hold it like this, it is about 10 and 3/4 inches, heading toward 11 inches, or right around the 27 and a half, almost 28 centimeter mark. So definitely quite sizable. Again, being 1/35th scale, which is, I believe, what this Triceratops model is meant to be. The Triceratops itself isn't huge, but the inclusion of this quite large base definitely helps to make the model pretty large overall. But as far as we put it back here, let's see if we can balance it up like that. Oh, there we go. So we kind of have it balanced up in a better position. But as far as a size comparison goes, there is Mr. Papo, T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. And you can see again, the Triceratops isn't gigantic by any means at all, but it is still a pretty good size as a whole. And again, with that base being included, definitely amps up the overall size of this collectible. Really does make it a much more impressive visual with the addition of that gorgeous base. But hopefully, if you have one of these figures here, this will help to give you an idea of the size of this Chronicle Collectibles Triceratops. And then for another comparison that I felt like would be quite interesting to see, we actually have the Nanmu Triceratops next to the Chronicle Collectibles version. And you can see that overall, as I drag it against it back there, which I don't want to do, but overall they are a very, very similar size. And I believe the Nanmu one is around 1/35th scale, I think. So you can obviously see that the size is pretty similar overall. I will say, though, that the actual fine detail is way more vibrant and way more impressive on the Nanmu version, more so than the Chronicle Collectibles version. The version of Chronicle here just kind of has a little bit of a washed out sort of a look, whereas the Nanmu version, the detail really pops. I don't know which one has the better paint apps. They have a similar look overall as far as the coloration goes, but both do look really cool. I would say, though, that as far as the actual head sculpt goes, even though I love the Nanmu one, I feel like the Chronicle Collectibles one is a little bit more screen accurate than what we see with the Nanmu version. But both are very similar in size, incredibly similar in paint application. I think the Nanmu one might be slightly better as far as the paint apps go. Definitely a little bit more effort put into the actual application of the paint. And the Nanmu version also has better detail as a whole. Then for another size comparison, there is the Papo Triceratops. And the Papo one is a little bit further forward than what you actually see on... Now let's see if I can move it over to get them both in screen there. But then what you see on the Chronicle version. So now that we have it back a little further, you can see that the Chronicle version is definitely a good bit larger than the Papo Triceratops. The Papo Triceratops clearly is based on the Jurassic Park Triceratops, so another one that I felt like would be a good one to bring in for a comparison. And plus, the Papo one is like a super popular Triceratops that many people have in their collection. I'm not going to do too many comparisons with this one because the positioning of the Triceratops makes it a little bit more difficult to really get good, accurate sizes with it, but as a whole, when it comes to the overall visual of this diorama, I feel like having these two figures in here help to show you that even though it's not an absolutely massive model like you often find from Chronicle, it still is pretty decently sized, and you can definitely see that here next to the Mattel Dilophosaurus and Velociraptor. Again, it's not gigantic, but... well, the Triceratops isn't gigantic, but the model as a whole, with the addition of the base, definitely is quite sizable. So this Chronicle Collectibles Sick Triceratops is really cool, and it's really cool for numerous reasons. The first reason is it's an officially licensed Jurassic Park product. Chronicle did, in fact, have the license for Jurassic Park models, and they released a plethora of them, honestly, and they have some of the coolest models that I've ever seen, like the Pachycephalosaurus, the Parasaurolophus, the Breakout T-Rex is really awesome, even if the paint's not so great, and There are also those Crash McCreary baby raptors, which I so desperately wanted and never got a hold of. And then we also have the hatching raptor, the egg, you had the resonating chamber, the beautiful Compsognathus. Some of those I do have, and some of them are some of my prized possessions when it comes to my collection. So I really am quite happy to be able to add another Chronicle Collectibles piece to my collection, especially again with them being defunct and a little bit harder to get a hold of their models, especially if you go check out eBay sometimes. Their prices are just ridiculous on there for Chronicle stuff. But having a very late shot at acquiring a Chronicle Collectibles model is pretty darn awesome, and Big Bad Toy Store, thank you very much for having this in stock, and hopefully anybody interested, again, grabs it on there before others find out, grab them and start reselling them on eBay, because that's what everybody seems to do nowadays, all of these stupid scalpers all the time. But as a whole, it's a really nice model. Again, better than I was expecting, and definitely a great piece to add to any Jurassic Park collection. The sculpt of the Triceratops is incredibly well done. Even if the Nanmu version did have some detailing that was a little bit more crisp, a little bit more vibrant, the detail on this does still look really good on its own, and the sculpt as a whole is incredibly well done when it comes to not only the fine detail, but the overall appearance of the Triceratops. It's probably the most screen-accurate Triceratops that I have in my collection when it comes to a Jurassic Park version. Like, it really does look exactly like the Triceratops looks sculpt-wise in the film. Again, the paint is pretty nice. It could have been better, but as a whole, when it comes to a Chronicle model, like, it's way better than I was expecting. So that is a huge plus for the Triceratops. I feel like maybe if they would have added like some washes and stuff like that, it could have amped up the realism, maybe captured that lighter tone of color that you see, very, very subtle light tones of color in the face of the Triceratops. Could have helped as well, but even without that stuff, I think the paint looks really good for a mass-produced model. The fact that it is a limited edition of only 200 shows you that this is definitely a really cool model to add to your collection, because 200 in the entire world is not very many. So having the pleasure of having something like that with such a low limited number is really cool. And I actually have under 100, just barely, but that's also pretty cool. The base the Triceratops is laying on looks really good. Again, very nice visual of the Triceratops laying in all of that vegetation. Chronicle did a fantastic job of sculpting that out and painting it as well, giving it a few different variations of color, and the earthy area all around that also looks really nice. The base is also, well, actually not just the base, but the entire model is also very heavy, so no worries as far as it moving around. It's not going to fall, and even if you have an earthquake, I feel like it might be pretty hard to move this thing because it is still pretty darn heavy. And then, of course, on top of that, incredibly nice looking, again, base, a very professional, almost museum grade base that we have for it. We have that gorgeous Jurassic Park logo right there in front of the Triceratops, just again to give you that icing on the cake to top off the overall beauty of this release. So if you guys are interested in picking this up, absolutely head to the link in the description straight to Big Bad Toy Store and grab it right now before it is gone. I don't know how many they have. I don't see it lasting very long once people realize it's on there, so make sure you head on over there, grab yourself this beautiful Triceratops at 50% off, and again, long discontinued, long unavailable, so probably is the last chance to actually get this for a decent price. So make sure you check that link in the description, go grab this really nice looking Triceratops, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.